Imagine this. You wake up in a bed so soft it feels like clouds. Your coffee brews at the touch of a button. The temperature is perfect, your phone glows, and everything you could want sits within arm's reach. Yet, deep inside, there's that strange emptiness, that quiet anxiety whispering that something's missing. We've built a world where suffering is optional, but so is meaning. And the more we chase comfort, the further we drift from strength. The Stoics saw this coming centuries ago. They called it the slow decay of the soul that forgets how to endure. Modern author Ryan Holiday calls it the tyranny of comfort, the silent killer of greatness. In his words, comfort is a false god that takes everything and gives nothing. And he's right. The moment life becomes too easy, we stop growing. Because comfort doesn't liberate us, it weakens us. Welcome to the Stoic Lighthouse, where ancient wisdom cuts through modern confusion. Let this light guide you toward peace and wisdom. If you believe true strength is built, not bought, take a second to like this video and subscribe. Every week we explore how the teachings of Stoicism can turn chaos into clarity. Now, let's face the truth. We live surrounded by luxuries that emperors couldn't imagine. Yet most people are more anxious, distracted, and lost than ever before. Our society has mastered pleasure but forgotten purpose. We spend our days chasing convenience, terrified of inconvenience. The Stoics would call this what it really is, slavery, not of the body, but of the mind. Seneca warned us about this disease long before the modern world existed. He wrote of men chained to their own wealth, believing they owned it when, in truth, it owned them. He saw how the endless pursuit of comfort makes us restless, never satisfied. According to Seneca, nothing is enough for the man to whom enough is too little. And then came the insight of Musonius Rufus, the teacher of Epictetus, a man who lived through exile, deprivation, and disgrace, yet never saw hardship as a curse. He believed that comfort was not a gift, but a test. Musonius Rufus taught, "We will be stronger, better, and happier if we make sure we are not softened by ease, but challenged by discomfort." The Stoics understood what modern psychology calls hedonic adaptation. Pleasure fades, excitement dies. What once felt miraculous becomes invisible. And when everything becomes easy, we begin to rot from the inside out. The philosopher Chrysippus described this as the corrosion of the soul, the slow loss of our ability to distinguish what truly matters from what merely entertains us. According to Chrysippus, the wise man trains his mind to desire only what reason approves, not what habit demands. Today, habit demands everything: notifications, indulgence, shortcuts, and safety. We've mistaken peace for numbness, and when life finally forces us to face pain, we have no armor left. That's why the Stoics practiced negative visualization, a shocking exercise where they imagined losing what they loved, not to suffer, but to remember gratitude, to reawaken the soul dulled by comfort. It was their way of returning to life's rawness, the sharp edge that keeps us truly alive. William B. Irvine calls this the Stoic reset, the antidote to the modern sickness of endless wanting. When you picture the loss of everything you take for granted, your health, your home, your loved ones, you stop sleepwalking through life. You stop waiting for happiness to come from something new. You realize it's been here the entire time. Donald Robertson, a modern Stoic scholar, puts it bluntly: resilience isn't built in comfort, it's built in the fire. So that's what we'll explore today. The fire. The art of using discomfort as fuel, the ancient practice that turns anxiety into awareness, fragility into strength, and ordinary life into something extraordinary. Because if you can imagine losing everything and still find peace, then you've discovered a truth most people will never touch. Zeno once said, "The goal of life is to live in agreement with nature." Be, but in a world addicted to escaping it, maybe the way forward is learning how to live with it again. Stay with me until the end, because this isn't just a philosophy lesson, it's a way to reclaim your mind in an age that profits from your restlessness. Number 1, the hedonic trap. Why pleasure always fades. You finally make it. The promotion, the dream car, the apartment with a view that once felt unreachable. For a moment, it's bliss, that electric sense of arrival. You breathe deeper. You smile wider. You think this is it. But soon something shifts. The excitement dulls. The shine fades. What was once extraordinary becomes background noise. That's the cruel truth of pleasure. It evaporates. We don't lose it because life is unfair. We lose it because the mind gets bored. This is the hedonic trap, the endless treadmill where satisfaction is always temporary and happiness is always postponed. The Stoics saw this long before science gave it a name. They observed how people chased luxury and comfort only to feel emptier once they had them. Seneca watched the richest men of Rome waste their lives acquiring more, never realizing that abundance was their prison. According to Seneca, it is not the man who has too little that is poor, but the one who craves more. Desire never ends, it only mutates. The Stoics understood that the problem isn't pleasure itself, it's our dependence on it. Zeno, the founder of Stoicism, taught that peace doesn't come from collecting things, but from aligning your desires with reason. As Zeno taught, the wise live according to nature, not according to their cravings. But our world runs on craving. We've built an empire of instant gratification, same-day shipping, on-demand entertainment, endless feeds. The ancient Romans built monuments to their gods. We've built ours to convenience. And the result, a generation addicted to comfort yet starving for purpose. Chrysippus warned that when desire goes unchecked, it transforms from a servant into a tyrant. Modern psychology calls it hedonic adaptation, but the Stoics called it slavery, the mind enslaved by its own appetites. According to Chrysippus, desire, when it ceases to serve reason, becomes its master. Musonius Rufus, the philosopher often called the Roman Socrates, believed that luxury was the most dangerous poison, sweet at first, but corrosive to the soul. He taught that ease dulls virtue, and that a person who never faces hardship can never truly be free. As Musonius Rufus wrote, "No one becomes good by living softly. Virtue is born from struggle." It's not about rejecting pleasure. The Stoics didn't despise beauty, wealth, or success. They simply refused to depend on them. They believed that everything external, wealth, status, pleasure, should be enjoyed like a traveler enjoys a sunset, with gratitude, not possession. Because the moment you cling to it, fear enters. William B. Irvine calls this the Stoic shift, a change in perception where happiness stops being something to pursue and becomes something to protect. Gratitude is the lock, discipline the key. You stop asking, "What's missing?" and start seeing how much you already have. Ryan Holiday describes it as subtraction, removing the unnecessary until peace appears. In a world obsessed with adding more, subtraction feels revolutionary. And yet, the more you remove, the lighter you become. Pleasure fades. That's inevitable. But to the Stoic, its fading is not a curse, it's a reminder that joy was never meant to be chased, it was meant to be noticed. When the excitement dies, what remains is truth. And truth, unlike pleasure, doesn't fade. Number 2. The Stoic simulation, training for loss. What if the key to happiness wasn't about gaining more, but imagining less? What if peace didn't come from holding tighter, but from letting go, at least in your mind? The Stoics believed that to master life, you must first rehearse loss. It sounds dark, almost cruel, but they called it premeditatio malorum, the premeditation of evils, a mental simulation designed not to depress you, but to prepare you. It's the Stoic simulation, the art of training the soul to stay calm in a world built on change. At its heart, negative visualization is simple. You close your eyes and imagine losing something, not with panic, but with purpose. Imagine waking up tomorrow and your home is gone, your phone, your comfort, your plans, all stripped away. You imagine not to suffer twice, but to suffer less when life inevitably takes something away. Because everything you love is borrowed, everything you cling to is temporary. The Stoics understood this truth, and they practiced facing it daily, not as pessimists, but as warriors. Seneca compared this mental exercise to a soldier's training. He believed that the mind, like the body, must be drilled in hardship if it's to stay unshaken in crisis. As Seneca wrote, "The man who has anticipated the coming of troubles takes away their power when they arrive." The Stoic simulation is not about fear. Fear is chaotic, reactive, consuming. This practice is its opposite, structured, deliberate, and freeing. It is emotional armor. When you visualize loss, you turn uncertainty into familiarity. The unknown becomes known, and therefore powerless. Epictetus, who was once enslaved, beaten, and left crippled, embodied this philosophy in action. He taught that nothing truly belongs to us. Our health, our possessions, even our loved ones, they are gifts from nature on temporary loan. According to Epictetus, never say of anything, "I have lost it," but rather, "I have returned it." This mindset sounds cold to the modern ear, but in truth, it's the highest form of love. It doesn't make you love less, it makes you love deeper, because you finally understand the fragility of everything. You don't take people for granted when you've practiced their absence. You don't cling in fear when you've trained yourself to let go with grace. Modern philosopher William B. Irvine revived this ancient technique for the 21st century. He explains that gratitude born from visualization is far more powerful than gratitude born from comfort. When you imagine loss vividly, the silence after laughter, the emptiness of an absent home, you don't just think gratitude, you feel it. You experience relief, awe, and joy for what still remains. As William B. Irvine explains, you don't just say you're grateful for your health. You feel the deep relief of not being sick. To practice this, you don't need a temple or ritual. You need presence. A few moments of quiet. Picture your life without the things you treat as permanent. The running water, the people you text, the steady heartbeat in your chest. For a breath, imagine they're gone, and then open your eyes. You'll see differently. You'll feel differently. Chrysippus, the great Stoic logician, believed that philosophy was not just about theories, but about transformation, training the mind to react with reason, not panic. The Stoic simulation is exactly that, an act of transformation. It takes the same mental energy that fuels anxiety and turns it into resilience. As Chrysippus taught, the wise man does not hope for events to happen as he wishes, but wishes for them to happen as they do. To live without this practice is to walk through life blindfolded, shocked every time the world changes. To practice it is to walk awake, to meet loss with steadiness, to meet fear with readiness, to meet life with open eyes. Donald Robertson, a modern scholar of Stoicism, once said that this exercise doesn't make you hard, it makes you honest. Because the more you accept life's impermanence, the less it can take from you. In truth, the Stoic simulation is not about preparing for death or disaster. It's about learning how to live. It's a rehearsal for gratitude, a mental discipline that turns fragility into strength. Everything fades, possessions, comfort, love, even us. But the Stoic learns to love through that fading, not despite it. Because when you imagine losing everything, you stop being afraid of losing anything. Number 3, mental alchemy, turning fear into gratitude. There's a strange kind of magic in the Stoic mind, an alchemy that transforms pain into power and fear into deep appreciation. When you practice negative visualization consistently, something begins to shift. You stop reacting to life, you start responding to it. You begin to see that every loss, every discomfort, every uncertainty carries within it a hidden opportunity, a chance to remember what truly matters. This is mental alchemy, the Stoic art of turning imagined suffering into strength. At first glance, it seems counterintuitive. Why would anyone deliberately picture losing what they love? But the Stoics understood something most people never learn, that what we fear to imagine often controls us the most. When you bring that fear into the light of awareness, it loses its power. Fear thrives in avoidance, but dies in attention. By facing loss in your mind, you're not summoning pain, you're dissolving it. Marcus Aurelius, emperor of Rome and student of hardship, understood this better than anyone. Every morning he reminded himself that everything he loved, his throne, his family, his body, was temporary. As Marcus Aurelius wrote, "Think of yourself as dead. You have lived your life. Now take what's left and live it properly." That's the essence of mental alchemy. The moment you realize that every second you have is borrowed time, gratitude becomes your natural state. The trivial loses its hold. The noise of the world fades. What remains is clarity. Ryan Holiday often says that modern life has made us allergic to silence and obsessed with control. We panic the moment life doesn't bend to our will. But Stoicism teaches that control is an illusion, and once you let go of it, peace rushes in. Negative visualization is how you train that release. You rehearse impermanence until acceptance becomes instinct. Epictetus taught his students that the boundary of freedom lies within the mind. Everything outside of it, fortune, health, reputation, is beyond our command. And so, the wise man learns to focus his energy only on what cannot be taken from him: his thoughts, his choices, his character. As Epictetus reminded his followers, we suffer not from the events of life, but from our judgment about them. Modern science agrees. Neuroscience shows that our brains adapt quickly to both joy and pain. The stimulus fades, but the story we tell ourselves remains. The Stoics mastered the art of changing that story. They saw pain not as punishment, but as a forge. Gratitude, therefore, was not a soft emotion. It was armor. William B. Irvine calls this defensive joy, a joy that doesn't rely on external stability, a joy that survives chaos because it's rooted in awareness, not circumstance. When you practice imagining loss, every ordinary moment becomes extraordinary. You stop taking things for granted: the warmth of sunlight, the sound of laughter, the steady breath that keeps you alive. According to William B. Irvine, the gratitude born from visualization is deeper than any forced optimism. It's not pretending things are good, it's realizing they already are. This kind of gratitude is not fragile, it's fierce. It's built on truth, not fantasy. The Stoics didn't say, "Everything happens for a reason." They said, "Everything happens, now find your reason within it." That's alchemy, transforming what could destroy you into something that strengthens you. Chrysippus believed that philosophy should turn theory into transformation, that the test of wisdom was not what you knew, but how you lived when life turned dark. He wrote that the mind could be trained to convert every experience, even pain, into progress. As Chrysippus declared, every event is an opportunity for virtue if you choose to see it that way. Modern Stoic thinkers like Donald Robertson echo this ancient wisdom. They remind us that resilience isn't about avoiding pain, it's about integrating it. Gratitude becomes a kind of rebellion, a refusal to let suffering dictate your spirit. When you master this mental alchemy, fear stops being the enemy. It becomes the raw material from which peace is forged. You no longer ask, "Why me?" but instead, "How can I grow from this?" You stop waiting for perfect moments and begin realizing that the moment you have right now is already perfect. precisely because it's fleeting. Negative visualization trains your perception. It reprograms the mind to find beauty in fragility, to replace dread with depth. Every imagined loss becomes a spark of presence. Every quiet moment becomes sacred. In the end, this is what the Stoics discovered. Gratitude is not the reward for happiness. It's the foundation of it. Number 4, the ritual of the sage, a daily practice guide. The Stoics believed that philosophy was not meant to be read. It was meant to be lived. A philosophy that stays in books changes nothing. Transformation only happens when ideas become habits, when thought becomes ritual. That's why negative visualization was never just theory. It was a daily training ground for the mind, a quiet practice that hardened the soul against chaos and softened it toward gratitude. They treated it as a discipline, a ritual of perspective, not despair. To the Stoics, morning and night were sacred times for this exercise. In the quiet before the day begins, or in the silence after it ends, they rehearsed loss. They imagined the water not running, the meal not appearing, the home not standing, the loved one not breathing. Not to invite sadness, but to build readiness. Every visualization was a mental workout, strengthening the muscle of gratitude and resilience. Seneca advised his students to practice poverty from time to time, to eat simple food, wear rough clothes, and ask themselves if this was truly unbearable. Through this, they learned how little they actually needed to live well. According to Seneca, set aside a certain number of days during which you shall be content with the scantiest and cheapest fare, and say to yourself, is this the condition that I feared? That single question reveals everything. Fear fades when it's tested. The more you face deprivation, even in imagination, the smaller it becomes. Marcus Aurelius practiced this too, though he lived surrounded by gold. Each morning he reminded himself that he could lose everything, power, praise, health, even his own thoughts, and yet remain whole. As Marcus Aurelius wrote, begin each day by telling yourself, today I shall meet with interference, ingratitude, arrogance, deceit, but they cannot harm me, for I can choose to remain true to myself. For the modern mind, this ritual may seem uncomfortable. We are conditioned to avoid loss, to seek constant reassurance. But the Stoic understood that peace is not found by avoiding discomfort. It's found by mastering it. By practicing voluntary hardship, they made involuntary hardship powerless. William B. Irvine describes this as mental vaccination. Just as the body becomes immune by exposure, the mind becomes stronger through simulated struggle. When you imagine the worst calmly, the worst loses its sting. As William B. Irvine explains, the Stoic does not wish for suffering, but he prepares for it, so that when it comes, it finds him ready. This is not fatalism, it's freedom. It's the art of living eyes wide open, seeing impermanence, and loving life more because of it. You don't do this exercise to detach from the world. You do it to attach more consciously. You start to appreciate your morning coffee as if it might be your last. You listen to your partner's laughter as if it were borrowed sound. You walk through your home not with entitlement, but with reverence. Musonius Rufus taught that discipline in thought must match discipline in action. The same way a warrior sharpens his sword daily, the philosopher must sharpen his mind. The Stoic's weapon was awareness. As Musonius Rufus said, the training of the soul is the noblest form of exercise, for it prepares us to face both fortune and misfortune alike. This is the heart of the ritual. To see clearly, to feel deeply, and to remain unshaken. It's not about extinguishing emotion, but about guiding it. It's about remembering that every joy you experience is temporary, and precisely because of that, infinitely valuable. So tonight, before you sleep, imagine losing something you love. Your health, your job, your freedom. Sit with that image, not in panic, but in presence. Then open your eyes. Notice the weight of what remains. The gratitude that floods in afterward is not ordinary. It's earned. It's the gratitude of the sage, calm, grounded, and unbreakable. Number 5. The razor's edge, worry versus premeditation. There's a thin line between wisdom and torment, and the Stoics walked it with precision. It's the razor's edge that separates healthy preparation from destructive worry. Both look the same from a distance, the mind imagining future hardships, but one sharpens the soul while the other consumes it. This difference, subtle yet absolute, is the essence of Stoic resilience. Worry is chaos disguised as caution. It's the endless replay of what could go wrong, without plan, without control. It paralyzes instead of prepares. Premeditation, on the other hand, is discipline. It's the art of rehearsing adversity with calm and purpose. One drains energy, the other builds it. The Stoic trains his imagination to serve him, not to scare him. Seneca saw this confusion everywhere, people mistaking anxiety for wisdom. They called themselves realists, but they were prisoners of their own thoughts. As Seneca wrote, "We suffer more in imagination than in reality." To worry is to live pain twice, once in thought, once in truth. But to premeditate with intention is to suffer once, and sometimes not at all. The Stoic does not dwell on misfortune. He simulates it. He faces loss in the theater of the mind, so that when life's curtain rises, he is ready for the performance. Chrysippus explained that emotion stems from judgment, not from events themselves. Worry, therefore, is a false judgment, the belief that what is uncertain is already doomed. Premeditation corrects that error by reminding us that uncertainty is neutral. Our response gives it color. According to Chrysippus, the fool fears what might be, the wise prepare for what must be. Lighthouse. This is the razor's edge, the difference between being ruled by fear and being guided by foresight, between reaction and reflection. When you worry, you serve your emotions. When you premeditate, your emotions serve you. Modern Stoic thinkers like Donald Robertson expand on this idea. He explains that worry is passive, it spirals. Premeditation is active, it moves forward. It transforms anxiety into a plan, turning dread into direction. Donald Robertson writes, "Worry seeks certainty in an uncertain world. Premeditation accepts uncertainty and thrives within it." Marcus Aurelius lived this truth daily as Emperor of Rome. Surrounded by politics, betrayal, and death, he began each morning reminding himself that chaos would visit, and that it could not touch his character unless he allowed it. As Marcus Aurelius taught, "Choose not to be harmed, and you won't be." That is the Stoic mind at its sharpest, refusing to be cut by the blade of circumstance. The world cannot control how you think, only how it tempts you to react. The Stoic resists that pull by standing still, calm as a mountain amid the storm. William B. Irvine compares the practice to an emotional firewall. When you rehearse hardship with reason, you build resilience before crisis strikes. Your nervous system learns to stay steady. The event that breaks others merely tests you. As William B. Irvine explains, premeditation is mental training under controlled conditions so you don't fall apart under real ones. In truth, worry and premeditation use the same mental tool, imagination, but wield it differently. Worry lets imagination run wild. Premeditation teaches it discipline. Worry drains you of strength. Premeditation refines it. The Stoic understands that the goal is not to avoid imagining hardship, but to do it with courage. To look reality in the eye and say, "I am ready." That readiness is freedom. When you master this balance, this razor's edge, you stop wasting your energy fearing what might come. You save it for living fully in what already is. Every path we've walked so far, from the disease of comfort to the Stoic rehearsal of loss, leads here to this quiet revelation. Happiness is not built by adding more light, but by learning how to see in the dark. Gratitude, the kind that endures, is not born from abundance. It's born from awareness, the moment you recognize that everything you love exists on loan from time. The Stoics called this acceptance amor fati, the love of fate. To not merely endure what happens, but to embrace it as part of life's design. Marcus Aurelius lived this truth every day, surrounded by war and betrayal, yet still finding beauty in the impermanence of all things. As Marcus Aurelius wrote, "When you arise in the morning, think of what a precious privilege it is to be alive, to breathe, to think, to enjoy, to love." That is the heartbeat of Stoicism. To love the present moment as it is, not as you wish it to be. To see that the ordinary, your morning coffee, a friend's voice, the sunlight through your window, is already extraordinary when viewed through the lens of mortality. Modern philosopher Ryan Holiday echoes this when he says that gratitude is not a feeling, but a form of resistance, a refusal to let life's chaos steal your peace. The Stoic does not wait for perfect conditions to feel thankful. He chooses to be thankful because conditions are imperfect. Seneca wrote of this paradox centuries ago, that the wise person smiles not because life is easy, but because he understands it fully. According to Seneca, a good character once formed is not lost in misfortune. Gratitude becomes an act of defiance, to look at loss and say, "I still love life." To face uncertainty and whisper, "I am ready." This is not weakness, it's power. The kind of quiet power that no empire, no chaos, no tragedy can take from you. So as you finish this reflection, pause for a moment. Look around you. Everything you see will one day disappear, and that is precisely what makes it beautiful. Every smile, every breath, every sunrise is temporary and therefore sacred. Gratitude born from darkness is not fragile. It doesn't need perfection. It doesn't beg for control. It simply looks at life, raw, unpredictable, magnificent, and says thank you. And remember the timeless wisdom of Zeno, who began it all. As Zeno said, the goal of life is to live in agreement with nature. When you learn to live in harmony with impermanence, gratitude becomes effortless. You stop running from what changes and start dancing with it. Share your reflections in the comments below. What truth resonated most with you in this journey, and how will you practice gratitude in your own life starting today? Your thoughts may be the light someone else needs. If this message inspired you, leave a like. Share it with someone who's searching for calm amid chaos, and subscribe to the Stoic Lighthouse, where ancient wisdom continues to guide modern souls toward peace and clarity. In our next reflection, we'll explore a question as old as wisdom itself, the meeting point between two great traditions, one born in the mountains of Greece, the other in the temples of China. Are Stoicism and Taoism opposites, or two invisible paths leading to the same inner peace? Stay tuned. The darkest nights produce the brightest stars. See you in the next video.